Welcome to another episode of Catharine. Today I'm here with Mr. Paine. He's from Paine, S.I., Philadelphia. Now, his stories are very inspirational, and we would like for you all to be inspired by it. Thank you for coming to the show, Mr. Paine.
Thank you for the privilege. I'm delighted to be here with you today.
Thank you. Could you tell us more about what you're doing?
Yes. Let me just share about the company that we now call DSI in Philly, Doing Business as Purchasing Services Inc. We are a professional services company. It really is business to business.
Yeah.
So we deal with both private and public sector firms who have operating budgets and have an interest in how to save money in the operating budget. One of the things that we often say at the outset when we are speaking with executives, there are only two things in an operating budget. It's salaries and expenses. Everything else in the budget and services purchased to keep the enterprise running. Now, what we are learning, and more and more, particularly as firms downsize, more of the money in the budget is in purchasing than it was a few years back. Manufacturers are learning that as well. There was a time when, in an automobile, as an example, the labor in the automobile was 60 to 70% of the cost of the automobile. The rest was the steel and the seats and all the other things that go in the automobile. The automobile company, the automobile companies are now buying systems. So they'll buy a transmission, they'll buy a motor, and all of that is now purchase cost. They don't have any labor that's associated with those subsystems anymore.
Yes, so is that more money?
No, it's not necessarily, because what they have discovered is in many instances when you see an automobile, really the manufacturing process is really a process of integration. It's integrating a motor, a transmission, a dashboard, seats, and all the other things into an assembly. Now, an automobile company can't be expert at all of those things.
Right.
So all of a sudden what they've discovered is there are some things, there are other companies who specialize in transmissions, can make much better than we can do that. And we'll buy the transmission from them. Or there are companies that make seating systems, and we'll buy the system from them. At one time, they would buy a speedometer, they'd buy a gas gauge, then they would put it into the dashboard. All of a sudden now, they've said, let's buy a dashboard with all of these components in it. We'll give you specs for how that should look, but we want to buy now that integrated system. So that's much more of the dollars in that car that is going to a supplier as opposed to labor on the part of the automobile company.
So could I say they cut out the middleman?
Well, in fact, what they've done is they've transferred labor content to a different place. Okay, now clearly computerization has helped some companies take labor out. But see, one of the very interesting things that we were talking about 2 decades ago was all of the products that were going offshore because of the labor content. You don't hear that discussion much anymore. The reason is there isn't much labor in the content of manufactured products anymore. So it doesn't make sense then to transfer a product to the Far East where there's a low-cost labor market for a product that doesn't have much labor in it. So now all of a sudden you got to worry about shipping and all of the other things. And so it makes a lot of sense then that you just sort of dismiss that idea of what's going on from a labor content point of view. But all of that means that there is more dollars in the operating budget that is now going to suppliers.
Could you give me an example of how much?
Yes. Let me go back to my last major employer was a computer manufacturing company called Digital Equipment. Digital no longer exists. It is buried twice under Hewlett Packard. So it was sold to Compaq. Compaq was sold to Hewlett Packard. So Digital is literally underneath it. I worked in a manufacturing plant that made tape drives for computers. When I joined that plant in 1971, we were making a tape drive that had a lot of labor in it.
Yes.
In fact, labor was 70% of the product cost of a tape drive. The next product, the next line revision of that tape drive this was a reel-to-reel tape.
Okay.
We then started making for computers cassette-type tape drives. The cassette tape drive that we made for the computer only had 20% of the product cost of labor. We bought major subsystems. We bought the heads. We bought the electronics. So our people became literally assemblers as opposed to makers. They just assembled materials, came together in systems together. That was merely a fact of doing the sorting and testing. And so that's how it starts to work.
I see.
But what generally is happening in manufacturing, in all kinds of manufacturing, is many of the processes that they've used have been automated. So that means less labor. And so, again, it's much more around what you buy to make the part. Now, let me just talk about the two industries, particularly in the private sector, that address. The first is the manufacturing industry. Now, the manufacturing industry does two kinds of buying. There's the buying of the parts that go into the manufactured product, whatever that product is. We call it raw materials generally. So if you are building a kitchen cabinet, and you're manufacturing the kitchen cabinet, you have to buy some wood, you have to buy some hinges, you have to buy whatever material you're using to laminate the shells, you have to buy paint. We call all of that raw material to support how you make a kitchen cabinet, okay? Now, the manufacturer has always bought raw materials well because they had to worry about the quality of their product. They have to worry about the pricing of it. So the buyers in the organization have always been on top of how we buy raw materials to support the manufacturing process. But what also happens in a manufacturing company is there is other buying that goes on to support everything else. For an example, the manufacturing company has employees And they require stationery and office supplies to support them. They have to have telecommunications, they have to have phones and things of that sort. Oh yes, yes. They have to buy computers to support the business operation. All of that support, things they buy to support the people, we call that indirect. So it's direct, what goes into the product. Indirect, which is what supports the people who are making the product. Okay. We are Purchasing Services Inc., PSI in Philly. And our web address is www.psinphilly.com. That's PSI, the letter N, PHILLY.com.
It's been a pleasure talking to you, and I hope to talk to you in the near future more about this processing business.
We'd be happy to talk about it. All right. Thank
you for joining Catherine's show today, and as always, may God bless you all.